Before this video starts, if you could please leave a like down below. If you're going to do it now. Why not do it now? Also, go down below in the description, check out Ricky Iallucci's SoundCloud. The 3 songs that you're listening to in this video today will be down below in the description as well, so you can go and listen to those songs independent of this video. So if you want to hear it better, you can listen to it there. And you can also listen to other tracks by him. He's a really great guy, and he makes really good music. So go ahead and check that out. What's going on, guys? This is David here. In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at 10 of the greatest iOS 10 through iOS 10.2 jailbreak tweaks for July 2017. To start off the list at number 10, we have HomeCardiconLabel. Now, this does exactly what you would expect. It puts an icon and a label on the home card in the app switcher. Now, by default, unfortunately, for whatever reason, Apple decided not to put an icon, and it's just kind of weird because every other app in the app switcher has an icon and it has a label. The home card, for whatever reason, never got an icon and never got a label. It's kind of weird, and it's one of those things, one of those subtle things that when a tweak comes out and you realize that this was not a thing before, it's just kind of like, wow. So it doesn't really do much more, but I think that it makes iOS look more complete. It makes it look like it should be there, and that's one of the functions of a tweak that I like, when it just looks like it should be in stock iOS. To some of you, this next tweak might be a little nostalgic. We're talking about Classic Player. Over the years, the music app has had a bunch of overhauls. With every year and every new iteration of iOS, Apple seems to continue to make minor changes to the music app, and sometimes they completely change it. From iOS 6 to iOS 7, obviously that was a major change. And even in iOS 10 and 11, Apple decided to make minor changes to the music app. But I have to say, for me at least, looking at this is a big nostalgia trip. Obviously, it's not going to be the same one-to-one experience that you're going to get on a physical click wheel, although this tweak does give off haptic feedback as well, so I guess it makes the experience a lot better. Also, you can have the sound effect on, so when you scroll, it actually will sound like this. So you can toggle the sound effects on and off, and you can also toggle a dark mode on and off. I have the dark mode turned on, but you can turn it off and you can have a white interface. So if you used to have a white iPod and you want that experience again, then you can have that. But if you used to have a black or dark iPod, you can have that experience once again. So it's pretty interesting because it does remind me of the past, and I think that's potentially what they were going for with this tweak. And, you know, even if you don't use the default music app and you use a different application such as Spotify, it is still an enjoyable experience. However, the only way you're going to really experience this is if you have local music through the default music app, because you can't use Spotify music or any other third-party music app to actually get the music to show up here. So the music will only really show up if it's in your default music app, but still, it is a really cool experience. And it's also really cool to see the differences and see how much exactly has changed over all of these years between the original iPod and the click wheel and the style of that and iOS 10 and iOS 11's music app. Going with the theme of nostalgia, this next tweak called StyloPowerDown can add the option to bring back an iOS 7 powered down screen. Now, there's also an LG power screen as well, if you know what the power down screen on LG phones look like. The very first beta I ever used was the iOS 7 beta, so I remembered seeing that familiar slide to power off screen, but that kind of changed in later iOS versions, and it looks a lot different than it used to back in iOS 7. So it's really interesting and really cool to see that back in action, as well as having the LG power down screen. Just to show you guys, this is what the LG power down screen looks like. You guys can see it says power off, restart, turn on airplane mode, and cancel. And if you tap on those options, it will go and do one of those options. I have a dialog box checked though that it will actually show up and say, are you sure you want to do this? The reason for that being is I think there's a couple of bugs right now with this tweak, so I would actually consider turning that on if you were just kind of testing some things out and you don't want to turn off your device or put it in airplane mode or anything like that. One of my biggest pet peeves is when someone records vertically using their iPhone. Vertical Video Syndrome 2 is an interesting tweak that displays an exclamation mark telling you, hey, you're recording in vertical mode. When I installed this tweak, I thought it would prevent you from recording in vertical mode. However, it does still let you record. And then when I realized it still let you record, I thought maybe as a watermark to, get people to not want to record vertically, I thought it would place that marker there as just a kind of a reminder, hey, you're recording vertically. But when I took a look at the video that I shot on my phone as I was doing this, it's clear that that's not the case. So unfortunately, while it doesn't prevent you from recording vertically and it doesn't show a watermark indicating that you were recording vertically, if you for some reason don't realize that you're holding your phone vertically while you're recording video and you want a reminder to record horizontally, this would be the way to do it. Vertical Video Syndrome 2 allows you to have an alert to inform you that you're filming in vertical mode. While you can do it if you want to, just don't. This tweak will help prevent the black bar syndrome. Plus, it's free. If this interests you in any way, you might as well check it out. For the new MacBook Pros that came out recently, the #1 feature that Apple was touting was the TouchBar. The TouchBar. We couldn't hear enough of the TouchBar. We couldn't hear the end of the TouchBar. Well, this developer decided to bring TouchBar to iOS. It's a jailbreak tweak, and it's pretty much what you'd expect from a TouchBar jailbreak tweak on iOS. It acts and functions the same way as TouchBar would function on the Mac. Obviously, it's a little bit different because it's not the physical touch bar that you would have on the Mac.
Hi, Siri.
So if you played around with that in an Apple store or you actually have it yourself, you can pretty much see the difference. But it pretty much looks about the same. What's nice by default is this tweak is only enabled when you're inside of an application, but you can go into the settings and tweak that. So if you want it to show up when you're in the app switcher, or you want it to show up while you're on the home screen, or you want it to show up while you're on the lock screen, you can configure all of that straight from the settings. Since I don't have a MacBook Pro with the touch bar, this is the closest I'm probably going to get next to the macOS application, the touch bar server that came out, but this is fairly close and it looks pretty good. At number 5, LockscreenXI is a tweak that puts the iOS 11 media controls for the lock screen and the iOS 11 passcode buttons on iOS 10 and below. There's an option to show more, and I can scrub and get a more fine-tuned option for whatever is currently playing. I can adjust the volume and go forward and backwards in the song, and also go forward and backward in terms of what is playing. In the options for the tweak, you can also turn on the passcode view. With that enabled, you could get the iOS 11 style buttons that iOS 11 has with the passcode for iOS 10 and below. So it looks pretty cool. It looks pretty accurate as well. There were other tweaks that did this, but I think that this does this pretty well. I mean, it's an all-in-one tweak. I think it's all compact, and I just think that makes it look better. When 3D Touch was first introduced, a lot of people were interested to see what new tweaks could be made from it. Interestingly enough, 3D Touch has been around for a little while now, and this tweak called forceForward is an interesting new concept that enables you to 3D touch right or left on the screen while you're putting an icon into wiggle mode and moving it. So when you do that, it will just move from page to page fluently and effortlessly, and it looks like a really nice tweak. It looks like it should be built into iOS, and again, I enjoy these types of tweaks that look like they should be native. With the few 3D Touch tweaks that came out, I pretty much thought that was it, and devs weren't really going to play with 3D Touch that much anymore because there wasn't really that much new to be implemented, but I was wrong. This is a really cool tweak. Bouncy 10 does exactly what the name suggests. It gives off the applications you launch a bounce effect. In this portion of the video, it might be a little bit harder to see, but I adjusted the settings So you can configure the velocity intensity, the stiffness intensity, the damping intensity, all these different things. Now the one thing that's annoying about this is when you go ahead and you tap the apply button right there, it does take a little bit to actually apply, at least it did on my device. Once it applies, you should see a pop-up alert letting you know that, hey, your settings have been applied. But here you guys can see it is a lot more noticeable, the bouncy, jumpy effect that happens when you're going from application to application. For a lot of these videos, I have some of these tweaks that look really cool, and people notice them before I actually talk about them in the video, and they're like, how do you do this? How do you do that? And it's always talked about later in the video, so I always say stick around to the end. This is one of those tweaks. At number 2, we have Spring Tools. The name of this tweak might deceive you a little bit. Spring Tools sounds a little bit like Springtomize, and it sounds like it would just hide icon labels and other stuff like that Springtomize does, but this is a completely different tweak. So if we go into the settings of this tweak, there's an enabled and disabled switch, which is really nice, and then there's also an option to animate page icons, and you guys can see I have Gear Wheel 1 chosen. We can also apply shapes on folders, enable shadows in folders, and there's options to do it to the dock as well. So there is an option to animate the icons in this tweak as I had shown before, and it does say that it's experimental, but sometimes it'll work, sometimes it won't. That's, I think, kind of what he means by experimental. It's not really like it's going to do that much harm to your device. Maybe in its early stages it was really buggy and it just would boot your phone into safe mode randomly. Regardless of that, there are a lot of ways to animate the icons. You can, rotate them around. You can make it so the dock animates and the pages don't, or the pages do and the dock doesn't, or whatever you want to do. I think it looks really cool with some of the combinations that I came up with. Enabling satellite dots is also an experimental feature which you may sometimes experience lag from as well. To me personally, the satellite dots look a little bit weird, and you'll see what I mean once you actually see it. But you can pick between 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 20 satellite dots, and depending on what number you choose, that's the number of satellite dots that will show up. You also have to respring for any changes to take effect. So you guys can see that I have shading turned on, and it's a little bit of a bluish tint. I also have the satellite dots turned on as well. Like I had said earlier, there are a bunch of ways to customize it, and this looks kind of interesting. I don't think I'll keep my phone looking like this, but it does look pretty interesting. So before I get to my number 1 top tweak pick, here are some honorable mentions that didn't make the cut. These were either because it was hard to show it off on video, or because I just didn't think it was good enough to be the number 1 spot. This tweak would be awesome if it worked. Notification Tester I've had nothing but problems with. It doesn't work. It just straight up does not work. I don't know why, but I get no notifications on the home screen, lock screen, whatever. I get 0 notifications. This is supposed to send you test notifications, like tweaks like color banners do and others, but for whatever reason, this just does nothing. I can even customize it and say test or whatever I want to put in there, but it's not going to make a difference. It just won't send anything. So this tweak, for whatever reason, does not work for me. Now, that's not to say it won't work for you, and it's not to say that it won't work, period, at all, at any point in the future. But for me, for right now, it just does not work. If this actually worked, it would definitely be higher up on my list. TimeMover is an interesting tweak that allows you to resize the time and the date on your lock screen. You can pinch and make it bigger or smaller, and you can tweak it to your liking. And it's an interesting tweak because if you have a specific wallpaper that it would look interesting if it was tilted a certain way, then you can actually do that. And on the iOS 11 wallpaper, it looks pretty cool if it's like this. It might be a little bit difficult to see, but I think it looks pretty cool. Iconcert is an interesting tweak that actually comes in handy. If you guys can see on my Yalu app, it's actually displaying 6.90 days. Now, I have this in conjunction with Cydia Extender, so each time it reaches about the 2-day threshold, it automatically re-signs the application as long as I am in jailbroken mode, and it's just super nice to see how long I have until it has to automatically re-sign. Now, this was more of a convenience when you had to go in and manually sign it, but now with Cydia Extender, you don't have to do that. I think it looks really nice, but the other nice thing is this tweak is not just bolted down to the Yalu app. You can change it so it's any other jailbreak application. If a new jailbreak for 10.3 comes out, maybe that's going to happen soon, 10.3.x. If a new jailbreak comes out, then you can change it. Cert time is kind of similar. Cert time is what I showed in one of my other tweaks videos, but I think that this is a better alternative to that. It just looks much better. It's on the app, and you don't have to go into an external app. It just tells you right there, I have 6.90 days left before the app expires. And with Cydia Extender, it's even better because it will just automatically re-sign it. And the pick for the #1 iOS 10.0 through 10.2 top jailbreak tweak is I'm just kidding, guys. Our #1 tweak is ControlCenterXI. Back in June, when Apple unveiled iOS 11 in their keynote and they showed off the redesigned Control Center, I automatically knew that there was going to be somebody to port over the redesign to iOS 10. Now, while it's not a one-to-one complete comparison to the iOS 11 Control Center, it tricked me. I couldn't really tell the difference from the 3D touch on the different menus to bring up more fine-tuned options, and it just pretty much looks like the real thing on iOS 11. If you 3D touch on the top left, tweaks like Flip Switch and Flip Control Center and Polis and things that take advantage of the Control Center will actually allow you to customize the different toggles that are there. And we can keep swiping as well depending on how many toggles we have. But if we go out of this, then we can actually do what the iOS 11 Control Center does, which is we can tap into the brightness and better fine-tune and better adjust that. There's also a toggle for Noctis and Night Shift Noctis if you haven't installed. It makes it pretty convenient to get it there. There's also the volume slider, so we could do that. And there is also Flip Switch and Polis there. One little thing I wanted to mention is for non-3D touch devices, so for below 6S devices that don't have the 3D touch capability, you can actually long press on whatever menu you would think to 3D touch on, and it actually does the same action. So that is really nice for those that do not have devices that are capable of 3D touch. You can see that all the bottom toggles have 3D touch there, so that's nice. For whatever reason though, when I slid the toggles back up and tried to get the flashlight to work, in this demo for whatever reason, it was not working. I've used this tweak before, and I've used the flashlight on this tweak before, and normally it does work, but for whatever reason during this demonstration it was not working. So maybe that's a bug, I'm not sure, but the flashlight normally is fine. Alright guys, that pretty much wraps up today's video. If you enjoyed, please make sure to slap that like button. Thank you guys so much for watching. Also, make sure to subscribe and ring that bell to be one of the first to know when I upload a new video, because sometimes the sub boxes don't work. So, again, thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Let me know down below in the comments what your favorite tweak was. And until next time, this is David, signing out. Peace. July 2017! I'm done! Finally! Here's to hoping I make another video soon. Hopefully that happens. Peace, guys.